With many schools started back up already and some starting after Labor Day and maybe even some this week, I thought it was time to fire up the math YouTube channel and cover topics that I teach in 7th and 8th grade and eventually branch off into some high school topics as well. So without further delay, why don't we hop into finding the absolute value of a number. Finding the absolute value of a number is a very, very easy process. The biggest, I guess, takeaway that you need for this is to really know what the definition of absolute value even is. And it is the distance a number is away from zero. When you think about distances, let's say you're traveling from Tennessee to Florida. Is your GPS ever going to say that you have negative miles to get somewhere? No, because distances can't and will never be negative. So I want you to keep that in mind when we're finding the absolute value of a number. It's calculating the distance it is away from zero. Well, if we know anything about distances, your final answer can't be negative. So kind of keep that in mind when we go over the first problem here. And the first one is absolute value of negative 10. Now, if you're kind of confused what these vertical bars mean, this is absolute value notation. Whenever you see two vertical bars on the beginning and the end of the number, it's asking you to find the absolute value of negative 10, or how far away is negative 10 from zero. So I'm going to use this horizontal number line to show you. So let's go ahead and plot negative 10. And negative 10 is 2 units, 4 units, 6 units, 8 units, 10 units away from zero. And again, since we're calculating the distance negative 10 is from zero, really it's just 10 numbers away from zero. So if we were to plot it on the positive side, because again, distances can't be negative, well, shouldn't this also be 10 units away from zero? Which it is. So the absolute value of negative 10 is really just 10, because again, distances can't be negative. So my final answer for the absolute value of negative 10 is simply positive 10. Right, let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. This time around, we have the absolute value of a positive number, which is 17. And again, we have those vertical bars there to signify absolute value notation. So let's go ahead and plot 17, which is going to be closer to 16 than it is to 20. Well, if we're thinking about how far away is 17 from zero, well, it should be 17 units away. So let's go ahead and just double check just to make sure. So we have 1 here, and then 4 more. That's going to be 5, 9, 13, and finally 17 units away from zero. So the absolute value of 17 is going to stay positive 17. Don't change your answer to a negative number, because again, you're calculating a distance. Your answer should not ever be negative. So don't change a positive value to a negative value after you take the absolute value of it. Okay, next one, absolute value of negative 14. Well, the absolute value of negative 14, well, that's going to be 14 numbers away from zero, 14 units away from zero. So if we were to graph this, we would want to make a point at positive 14. So the absolute value of negative 14, well, or the distance negative 14 is from zero, is positive 14. Right, next one, absolute value of 30. If we were going to graph this, well, I know it's going to be sitting at positive 30, and this is 30 units away from zero. So my final answer is going to stay positive at positive 30. And then I wanted to throw this last one in here just because it's kind of one of those gotcha questions that you might see. Maybe your teacher gives it to you. Sometimes I throw it at my students too to see if they're kind of paying attention. But this one is the negative absolute value of negative 9. Well, let's start with taking the absolute value of negative 9. The absolute value of negative 9, well, that's going to be positive 9 because it's 9 units away from zero. But then you're going to notice that there's this negative sign on the outside of absolute value notation. This negative is not being factored in to absolute value. So you need to make sure you just tack this negative sign onto your final answer. So the negative absolute value of negative 9 is negative 9 because that negative sign isn't inside of the notation. So let's go ahead and plot that on our number line at negative 9. Right, now we have a few problems for you to try out on your own. So if I move to the next screen here, here are 5 practice problems for you to try. I don't care if you write these on your arm. I don't care if you're writing them on your dog's fur. I don't care if you got a notebook. Just find somewhere where you can jot down these answers, even draw the horizontal number lines if you want to. I'm not going to pause the video or anything. I'm simply just going to go grab a drink while you fill this out. And then when I get back, you better be done or else we're restarting the video once again. So you have a few minutes, right? Maybe not even a few minutes, depends on how fast I walk. So go ahead, try those out, and then we'll see how you do when I get back. Oh, hi, Bob. If you guys don't know who Bob is my cat. He said you're not worthy of seeing him on camera yet, so maybe one day you'll get to see him, just not today, right? Hopefully you're about halfway done already. I'm already coming back up the steps. Fridge isn't that far, right? Almost around the corner already. And are you done? All right, I'll give you a second. I'll crack this open. We got a nice blue slush Alani for today's session of math. I might even film another one after this, depending on if I can create it all in time or not. So if there's another video with me wearing the same exact shirt, it's because I filmed 2 in a day, but I digress. All right, let's go ahead and go over the answers and see if you went 5 for 5 in the practice session. So the absolute value of 20, well, I know that's 20 units away from 0, and again, can't be negative, so we're going to make a point at 20, and my final answer is going to be positive 20. So the absolute value of 20, or the distance 20 is away from 0, well, it's 20. Next one, absolute value of negative 11. That's going to be 11 units away from 0. And again, my distance can't be negative. So the final answer is going to turn it to a positive 11. And let's go ahead and graph it on the number line. Right before 12, again, closer to 12 and not 9. So just make sure you put your points in the right spot. Absolute value of 8, well, that's 8 units away from 0. So we have positive 8 stays positive. And let's go ahead and plot it at positive 8. For number 4, the absolute value of negative 26, well, that's 26 units away from 0. So my answer is going to be positive 26. And then we want to make our point closer to 24 than 30. And then finally, the very last one, that trick one, so hopefully you kind of looked out for that. We have the negative absolute value of negative 7. Well, the absolute value of negative 7 would be 7, because it's 7 units away from 0. But then again, we have that negative sign that's not being factored in to absolute value notation. So let's go ahead and just add that to our final answer, which is going to be negative 7, which is going to be directly between negative 6 and negative 8. Right? So that's that. That's how you find the absolute value of a number. The biggest takeaway from this is that you're calculating a distance something is away from 0. And again, distances will never be negative no matter what. And if you can kind of keep that, as a mental note, you're going to be very, very successful when it comes to finding the absolute value. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like. Let me know if I'm doing it right, doing it wrong. If you like this kind of style, just let me know in the comments. And again, look out for more videos. So please subscribe, hit the bell, turn on those notifications, and we'll see you in the next math video. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch.